We will be moving on to the second sub-theme of the second and final session for the day, which is India and its land neighbors. Under Commodore Vasan's chairmanship, the session has the following expert speakers lined up, namely Mr. Balasubramanian C., Teaching Fellow and Chief Research Officer, School of International Cooperation, Security and Strategic Languages, Rashtriya Raksha University, who will be joining us virtually. Air Marshal VPS Rana, PVSM, VSM, former Air Officer in Charge Administration, Indian Air Force, who will also be joining us virtually, and Professor Claude RP, founder and director of the Pavilion of Tibetan Culture in Auroville. It is said that inviting twice is respect rendered twice. I now once again invite the chair for the session, Commodore R.S. Vasan, to introduce the distinguished speakers and commence the presentations. Please, sir.
Thank you, Yogesh. Good afternoon once again, and a hearty welcome to all the three speakers who are in this session. Claude RP, of course, has come all the way from Pondicherry and who's going to be here, and he's an authority on issues in Tibet, and he's going to talk to us much later about the water wars and the topography there, and also the handling of minorities in these regions. So that's his topic. So he's agreed to also expand the scope of his discussion to also look at China's initiatives in building dams, etc., to a certain extent. The other two speakers are going to participate virtually. One is Bala, of course, who was part of C3S till a few months ago. So he's now part of the RRU, and we are expecting that he would come here physically, but he's going to participate in a hybrid mode. And also Air Marshal Rana, who has been kind enough to join us and talk to us about the water wars, etc. So Bala, it's over to you. And in the interest of time, I'm not introducing in detail all the speakers. Those folders are there already with you. And briefly, they'll be introduced by flashing their brief bio on the screen before they start. Over to you, Bala.
Sir, I hope I'm audible.
Bala, sir, are you able to hear me?
Yeah. Perfect, loud and clear. Thank you. Before I begin, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to the organizers, starting with Sri Pratap sir, Managing Trustee, ICSB. Thank you, sir, for the opportunity. I also like to extend my sincere thanks and gratitude to Commodore Vasan sir, Director General C3S, Shashi sir, Director PI, and all the young team there for putting this together. And also would like to extend my sincere thanks and gratitude to my director, Dr. Venkat sir, for all the support extended for enabling me to participate today. So with these brief words, I would now quickly get into my presentation. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this will be the brief outline regarding my presentation today. I'll little bit introduce the topic for you, what has been China's interest in Afghanistan and what are its activities. So to initiate with, we'll try to contextualize what has policy towards Afghanistan, and what are the underlying underpinnings of Chinese interest and approaches towards approaching Afghanistan and the region as a whole, and a few recent initiatives, what has been the conflict mediation efforts undertaken by China, and the recent and emerging developments, concluding with my thoughts on this particular subject. Next slide, please. Yeah, to put matters into perspective, Afghanistan is China's contiguous neighbor, where for the close to 4 decades where peace has eluded, and geographically, it sits in a very strategic position, Afghanistan for China, where it also, recent media reports emanating, it sits on a vast reserves of lithium. And there are also a lot of untapped natural resources potential, including minerals, oil, and gas. That makes it very, very strategic for China. And it is also acting as a potential gateway between Central Asia and South Asia, which makes it a very crucial link in China's grand infrastructure network, which is the One Belt and One Road initiative. And off late in the last decade, Afghanistan has also emerged as an important component of China's regional diplomacy, because China, through its engagements with Afghanistan, it has also expanded its influence and its footprints in Central Asian states. And speaking in terms of connectivity and trade, Afghanistan also is an important hub for Central Asia as well as South Asia connectivity, which is why it remains a priority for China. Next slide, please. So to contextualize and situate what has been China's policy towards Afghanistan, first we need to understand Beijing's fundamental interest in Afghanistan is about ensuring that stability prevails there. Because speaking from the Beijing's perspective, any kind of chaos, unrest in Afghanistan, that has a potential to stoke Islamic fundamentalism, directly and indirectly threatens domestic security within China, particularly in its unrestive western regions of Xinjiang and other places. And regarding Chinese views on this topic on US presence in Afghanistan, it has got a mixture of conflicting factors, positives as well as negative. So on the negative side, China sees the US invasion of Afghanistan as US getting a foothold in the heart of the Eurasian continent, which could later be used to contain and derail China. But offering, a window of opportunity from the Chinese perspective, which we can decipher through the writings of Chinese scholars, both in think tanks and other media outlets. What we can see is, from the Chinese perspective, the long protracted war in Afghanistan, fostered a kind of radicalization of Muslims in the region that directly contributed to the unrest in China's northward Xinjiang region. But on the positive, offering a window of opportunity, China has always viewed America's protracted war in 9/11 as the best thing that can happen to China, because since the end of the Cold War. So this was like a God-sent window of opportunity to China, because China used that decade to build its strength, while Washington was very, very distracted and busy getting bogged down, spending trillions of dollars in Afghanistan as well as Iraq. And another positive for China is, although at that point of time, when the global war on terror happened, United States also needed China's nominal support for its war on terror. China conveniently used, this as a pretext to play up the terrorist threat in Xinjiang, and using the global war on terror to justify its repressive policies in the Xinjiang region and the Uyghur-dominated regions. So even at the peak of the Beijing's going out strategy, which was the precursor to what was 10 years ago started as the OBOR initiative, that encourage Chinese companies to, explore global market and get itself inserted with the, global economic arena. Afghanistan has never been a first priority in China's, larger geopolitical and geo-economic calculus, for a single biggest reason that, the security concern, the prevailing security concerns has always been one obstacle. And but this has tended to change. There was a gradual shift starting in 2014, where Taliban delegations, began to publicly and regularly visit China, which later culminated in secret talks that China facilitated between Kabul as well as the Taliban in Urumqi, which is very famous. And what China did was, China cultivated and maintained its equation not only with the then Kabul administration, but as well as with the Taliban. So, which gives China not only leverage, and also then it gave a special role in terms of negotiations between the two sides. And what is very interesting to note here is that China has never denied visas to the Taliban representative to visit China, either for meetings, which again enable China to play a facilitatory role between the Taliban and the Kabul. Next slide, please. So now let us touch upon the Chinese interest and approaches towards Afghanistan. So primarily speaking in terms of interest, China has three overarching and largely complementary national interests in Afghanistan, which is primarily, first comes security, next is strategy, and the third is economic. When I speak about China's interest in Afghanistan, it comes in the same order. So first, primary interest has always been security, followed by strategic and economic. So in terms of security, what China wants is they don't want to let Afghanistan again become, a safe haven for terrorism, especially movements like ETM, the East Turkestan Islamic movement, is seen by China as a threat, not only to its domestic security, but also to its territorial integrity. Speaking in terms of strategic calculations, strategically it is located within the reach of ambit of the OBOR initiative. In fact, to quote the former Chinese ambassador to Afghanistan, what she had to say in 2016, she mentions, without Afghan connectivity, there is no way to connect China with the rest of the world. So this, quote will amply signify where Afghanistan stands in terms of China's strategic calculations. And in terms of economic factors, China sees Afghanistan to have possessing a lot of investment potential. But unfortunately, this economic interest is directly correlating with its security as well as strategic interest. The Mesa-Ainak and the Amu Darya projects are a few examples to show what has been the Chinese primary economic interest in Afghanistan. And what is also we have to notice from the beginning, China has always carefully, projected itself image as more of a facilitator rather than, a benign picture, being more of a facilitator than a mediator in the Afghan conflict. So what we also have to remember is the equation that China maintains with its all-weather ally, Pakistan, which extends to China's approach towards the Afghan conflict and the Afghan question. So to give you a statistics, the two countries, both China as well as Pakistan, have held high-level talks about Afghanistan more than 36 times in the past since 2014. Next slide, please. So to give a geographical perspective, the Afghanistan's geographic position, which is what is a prized position for China, because it's a potential shortcut for importing oil and gas from the Middle East along with neighboring Pakistan, which also in a way, it helps China prevent the maritime dilemma that China currently has in terms of importing oil and gas. So Afghanistan also lies at the intersection of South Asia, Central Asia, and West Asia. So this is why Afghanistan is extremely important for China's OB, or the One Road and One Belt and One Road projects. And recently, the Taliban has showed a lot of interest in reopening the historical Silk Route trade routes, and especially the Wakhan corridor in the Badakhshan province. And they have been in talks with the Chinese because this project, once it is kicked off and cleared, this project would aid in Afghanistan rebuilding and its transition. So what is we have to in terms of security, China's interest, it has relied heavily on what we call the quadrilateral cooperation coordination mechanism, famously abbreviated as QCCM, which was primarily established in 2016 with other Central Asian states like Tajikistan. So this institution was pushed forward by the PLA, which wanted to play a greater role in Afghanistan. So primarily through these QCCM mechanism, what China wanted was to strengthen direct border relations with Afghanistan, have a discussion about also, there were a lot of reports emanating in the media about a discussion on the possibility of building a base with Afghans in the Badakhshan region. Next slide, please. There were also, along with this, there were also reports emanating about a potential Chinese base in Tajikistan, which was later denied. And then it was said that it will be funded by the Chinese, but manned by the Tajiks. Which was all these shows to prove how China wanted to manage the complex security situations in the remote Badakhshan region, which is situated very close to China's western province of Xinjiang. So there were also reports, a lot of China's efforts to facilitate engagements and resolve disputes between Afghanistan and Pakistan. So the overall aim is to have a good security relations and establish Chinese presence in the region so that it can have a significant influence in the wider region. So also there were a lot of security guarantees and concessions that was given, extended by the Taliban to the Chinese. So the Taliban decision to move the Uyghur network to locations far from Afghanistan regions closest to China has soothed the Chinese sentiments and allayed a lot of Chinese concerns. So primarily Beijing seeks to secure security guarantees from the Taliban to avoid any kind of threats that may emanate in the future. Next slide, please. Now, a little bit, I would like to touch upon how China has been using its intelligence apparatus, to manage issues in this region. So, China will continue to, extend its policy of strengthening its relations with Tajikistan and secure hard guarantees. Also using Pakistan to secure hard guarantees to accompany its political engagement in this region with Pakistan and other Central Asian states. Apart from security guarantee, China also wants to maintain eyes and ears on the ground, which is nothing but another form of intelligence collection to ward off any possible security threats in the region. So because what happens is according to Chinese views, any threat in China's periphery is regarded as Chinese threat to its domestic security. It is significant to note there is a lot of presence of the People's Armed Police Force in Tajikistan because the aim is to overall help China have an ability to have a direct reach with the local security forces, including joint training, to enable them to have a greater sense of control over the potential threats. Although it's very difficult to trace the movements of Ministry of State Security, which is the external intelligence agency of China, the most visible appearances happened when the MSS operatives in Afghanistan undertook an operation late 2020 when there was a spy network which was busted. And next slide, please. And this operation was completely kept discreet. So later media reports emanated was at least one of the men who has been ejected has been masquerading himself as a pine nut trader. So this pine nut trade has been actively encouraged by China, between China and Afghanistan. And in fact, it has also reaped a lot of good dividends economically for Afghanistan in terms of trade amounting to 15 million in the last financial year. So such trading also provides China with a good reason to engage with farmers in the parts of Afghanistan where Uyghur militant groups have been very, very active. So primarily, China uses these economic engagements and use these direct aid to develop links and contact on the ground to gather intelligence, as well as use this as a convenient excuse for China to maintain its eyes on the ground, eyes and ears on the ground. So another element which needs a lot of further research is the presence of Chinese private security companies. While they have been in region Central Asian states, and they're also believed to be present in Tajikistan, it is still further research is needed, and it is difficult to obtain their activities in other places. Next slide, please. And the deployment of Chinese People's Armed Police Force based in Tajikistan at times is over it, because Tajik shares a very porous border with Afghanistan, and China wants to maintain, want to strengthen this porous border. So this is mirroring Russia's approach, where Russia's largest base is also present in this region. So on the one hand, China has always provided regular military training to the Tajiks, but it has also ensured, it has got its own arrangements on the ground to avert any kind of potential threat. What is significant to note here, the security force that is being employed is the People's Armed Police Force, which is an extension of the Chinese domestic security agency, which is MPS, the Ministry of Public Security. So this reflects that how China views this threat. So China views any kind of security threat in this region is something that is directly linked to its domestic security threats. Next slide, please. And apart from the EPIM, China faces concerns from the Islamic State Khorasan province, the ISKP, which again sharpen Chinese concerns towards this region. Because in 2020, the then US administration led by Trump, he removed the ETM from its list of proscribed terror organization, adding to concerns of China. And this was seen by China as a move by Washington to engage with a proxy group against China. Next slide. Interestingly, in April 2013, China released a position paper on Afghanistan, and it was titled China's Position on the Afghan Issue. This is a 11-point paper. It indicated two things. One, what will be going forward, what will be the Beijing's policy towards Afghanistan, and what are the areas it will prioritize. To give certain few key points from this paper, it delineated core principles which will inform Beijing's policy choices towards Afghanistan, where it gave something called 3 respects and 3 nevers. The 3 respects and 3 nevers are: China respects the independence, sovereignty, and the territorial integrity of Afghanistan. At the same time, it also highlighted, it called for bilateral and multilateral approach in responding to the 3 forces, 3 evil forces, which is terrorism, extremism, and separatism, which is also called 3 poisons in the Chinese perspective. Also, the question of refugees, the production and sale of narcotics, and cross-border trafficking was also highlighted in this paper, demonstrating the importance for China. Next slide, please. So in terms of conflict mediation efforts, China today has never been shy of exhibiting its intention and playing a crucial role in ensuring global governance. And interestingly, it released a concept paper on global security initiative and the peace proposal on Ukraine. So this preceded the position paper that China released on Afghanistan. So what it signaled was China's intent to modify its image and solidify its role as a responsible mediator. So in the case of Afghanistan, since 2015, China has increasingly hosted the parties on Chinese soil to facilitate the discussion and the mediation efforts. And this is also the first time, China came out with assigning a country-specific special advice. Next slide, please. So this slide is more self-explanatory, which goes on to show how much of importance that China accords towards Afghanistan. So these are the 4 special envoys that China appointed for the mediation efforts. Next slide, please. So a few emerging developments, a lot of interesting projects are coming up in this region. One is in August 2022, the China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Afghanistan corridor. And next is the Trans-Uzbek Afghan railway routes, which leads up to the Arabian Sea. for which Kazakhstan and Pakistan are today discussing. So this will be enabled through the construction of something called the Trans-Afghan Railroad. So once this materializes, it runs, the rail network that runs deep to the south of Pakistan, and it will end with the ports in the Arabian Sea. So from this, we can infer that ships can be now, transported to Middle East, East Africa, as well as elsewhere in South Asia, using the maritime route. Next slide. The other two projects in terms of emerging developments are the North-South Trans-Afghan Railway. So this is seen as an extension of China-Pakistan occupied Kashmir economic corridor. So it is expected that once this North-South Trans-Afghan Railway, at some point it will intersect with what we call the East-West route that would again connect Iran to China via Afghanistan and Pakistan via Kabul and Peshawar. So Beijing basically views Afghanistan as a bridge between Central Asia as well as South Asia. And next is the important pine nut air transport corridor. As I mentioned, the leading of the trade of pine nuts between China and Afghanistan has now facilitated this inauguration of this pine nut air transport corridor in 2018. So this sheds insight into how Beijing's growing interest in the area along its western border. Next slide, please. Few concluding thoughts. Although in 2017 India and Pakistan became full-fledged members of SCO, Afghanistan still remains an observer, maintains an observer status in the SCO. So China will use SCO as a mechanism, as a platform to play an important role for cooperation and joint development of projects in this platform in terms of dealing with Afghanistan. So a stable Afghanistan will also help China to vision its long-term economic plans in the Central Asian region. So security challenge will always take precedence vis-a-vis strategic calculations, because China now wants to secure a strategic foothold in Central Asia, because a more stable Afghanistan will serve a greater strategic purpose for China. So idea is also to reintegrate Afghanistan with the greater Central Asian region, so that China can increase its economic influence and other influence in the region. To demonstrate, I can just give you one statistics. Beijing has now undertaken at least 90 One Belt and One Road related schemes throughout Central Asia. Next slide, please. So while Russia invasion has facilitated greater crude oil export to China, China also on its part has tried to diversify its energy supplies from other Central Asian nations. And in May 2023, Xi Jinping chaired something called the China Central Asian Summit. Interestingly, in the summit, during the official press release, along with this, it mentioned that China wants to increase its multilateral ties with the Central Asian states. But what is interesting to note, it also came out with something called, it included the Afghanistan peace and reconstruction effort in the official press release. So Afghanistan's foremost objective would be to ensure stability within Afghanistan, to ensure that there is no spillover of any kind of militant activity within China's periphery. On the economic front also, more than China needs Taliban, Taliban needs the Chinese today. So they have sought a lot of economic investments as an alternate to the largely aid-dependent Western nations. So for China primarily, because these kind of economic investments and engagements are a practical way to maintain a working relationship with the new political players in Kabul and maintain access to the rest of the Central Asia. Last slide. Yeah, just last two slides. So the India's goal, speaking in terms of India, India's goal in Afghanistan will be to mitigate the strategic influence of Pakistan there, so that it cannot be used as a safe haven for anti-terrorist groups. India is also attempting to turn Afghanistan into an transport and logistics access corridor to Central Asia in an effort to circumvent and outflank Pakistan through the Chabahar and other investments. It is to be noted, for China, any kind of India's failure here will be a victory for Pakistan. So especially now with the US exit from this region, any kind of enhancement of Pakistan's role in Afghanistan will indirectly contribute to China's influence, but also improve the bargaining chip and the negotiation positions of both Pakistan as well as China vis-a-vis Washington. So even geographically, any kind of should the security conditions permit and there is greater stability in Afghanistan, rising Chinese influence in Afghanistan will create a lot of buffer in Central Asia that will restrain greater US access to the Eurasian landmass. And strategically, this could translate into influence where it will, reduce the space for other players in the region. Next slide. So what should be noted here is a classic Chinese playbook. So China has urged the international community to view Afghanistan issue, what it terms, in a comprehensive, balanced and objective manner. This is what China has been using in all official statements. And China is also advocating, using alternate regional grouping in dealing with this issue, which does not include the US and its other allies, such as the SEO, the Moscow format dialogue, the foreign ministers grouping, the China, Afghanistan, Pakistan trilateral foreign ministers dialogue, apart from other grouping for discussing the Afghan issue. Because primarily what happens is this will help China in promoting an alternate model as opposed to the approach of the West, allowing it to China to more focus on its priority. So for India, it's going to be extremely crucial and critical to maintain continuous engagement with Russia and Iran, along with other Central Asian states, which will help in understanding what are the Chinese designs, and shape and understand what it means for India's interest in Afghanistan. Once again, thank you for the opportunity, for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you, Bala, for that exhaustive presentation on Afghanistan. There's only one question at the end of it all. Where did India lose the plot? So hopefully you will be able to answer this during the Q&A session and tell us how is that we had such excellent relations with Afghanistan, including the Taliban perhaps, lost out to China in terms of its engagement, in terms of its objectives, in terms of connectivity. So I think you may respond to this during the Q&A session as to what is it that made us perhaps lose out in terms of our engagement with Afghanistan. May I now request the next speaker, Air Marshal Rana, to kindly come online and make his presentation. And Shruti will flash his bio on this. It's also in your folders. But we are very honored to have you with us, Air Marshal Rana, and we look forward to your presentation.
Respected chair and co-panelists and all the audiences there. I wish I could be there in person, but nevertheless, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I'm really, really privileged, and more privileged to share this with Professor Cloud RP, because he is the real specialist on this. And so it's really nice to have him as a co-panelist. Next, please. Okay, so China's water wars in the Himalayan basin state is the one which and if you see that picture on the right, actually it describes it almost everything. You see the kind of dams that are being built or proposed to be built, and it is only a bit of the story that is depicted there. So this is how I'm going to cover my talk. I'm linking it with all the kind of infrastructure that's happening along the LAC, threat analysis of the proposed mega dam that's going to come up. If you see on the right side, proposed Indian main stem dam, and counterbalancing by India, possible remedies we'll look at very briefly before I conclude this. Next, please. Okay, so where did this talk of water wars started gaining ground was mainly after the 14th five-year plan in March 2021 was approved by the plenary. And there were a lot of objectives, the specific objectives that were put, which were really, really concerning. One of the main point of this was that their plan to reach carbon neutrality by 2060, absolutely welcome. But alongside, how do we get it? That was, there is a specifications of the plan for a 60 gigawatt dam. So when we talk about this capacity dam, it's a huge, and we've been trying to raise our concern with this much smaller dams. And here it is where China is planning this mega dam right on our border. And just to give you the comparison, India's total hydroelectric power capacity as on date is 47 gigawatt. And this is what is just in one dam China is wanting to build. Now, when we see this with the backdrop of what happened in Doklam, what happened in Galwan, what happened in Eastern Ladakh, we've been talking all day about all these issues, what's happening in South China and Taiwan, then it becomes a really, really concerning. And I'll link it up with so many other developments, and we will see that it is really, really a situation to worry for. Infrastructure development along LAC. Of late, there has been huge number of developments, infrastructure development, particularly for the PLAs to operate from the very, very close and inhospitable terrain. I'll come to that. More concerning is that China has a 20% of population and 70% of water. This is where the motivation of almost capturing every single drop of water that it can is emanates from. And when we link it up with with India, then the two populous countries, almost 40% of 37 to 40% of population, and just about 11 to 12% of the water to share between these two. So that gives us the entire idea that how this really going to be a problem area in future. And fear of hydrohegemony amongst the lower riparian countries, we already seen that in case of the Mekong River, and we'll just have a look at that how this worry is real. Next, please. Just to get the sense of it, you can just see the main river systems, which I'll be referring to in my this thing. You can see the Yellow River on top, which is barely able to sustain, and that is where the maximum population is, where you see the Yellow River running. Yangtze is another one. Then Mekong, Salween, and Yalong Sangpo, or Brahmaputra, what we call, is a real concern for us. But it is all these river systems are linked, because China has gone big way to capture water from all these river systems. Okay, next, please. Okay, so it is not that China has just started it yesterday. It has, even in 1949, once after the Civil War, I think the basic one thing that China had already done, and all their leaders, and is that China in next 100 years is going to be superpower, without even knowing what superpower they would become, whether technologically, economically, militarily. But this one thing was right then. The seed was sown right in 1949 that China in next 100 years will gain. And as we see the progress, particularly in last 2 decades, China is well on its way, despite all the problems that we have been discussing all day. But the issue is that it is already doing. So whatever are the plans afoot, they are executing it with meticulous precision. And so the genesis primarily is there. The geography and skewed population that I talked about is the entire northeastern portion is where the entire population is, most of the population is. And that is where the industry also is. And that is where the requirement, whether it is per capita consumption for agricultural uses or individual uses or industrial uses, that is where the China needs most water. And then you have drought in north, and you have floods in south. You have most of the water in south, as you saw in that slide also. Besides the river, they have huge numbers of reservoirs that they have created, either through the river system or artificially. And if you see, there's one statement of Mao Zedong in 1952. It said that there is more water in south and less in north. If possible, it's okay to borrow a little. And this is the statement which has been sticking along with all the leadership all along. And they've been wanting to actually make it fructify. Almost had 50 years of planning before. In 2002, they already started working on which is known the most engineering marvel, so to say, and most expensive project, the south to north water transfer project. And this is where the entire issue of emanating the concern of water war lies. Next, please. Okay, so these are this project, like I said, commenced in 2002. If you see that there are 3 routes that are planned: western, central through Grand Aqueduct, almost 1,300 kilometers, and then the eastern, which is a Grand Canal from the existing canal, the eastern route. And if you see, almost all the water from rivers down south is to be carried up north. And work on central and eastern route is almost completed. The water has already reached Beijing and Tianjin from the central route, and even the eastern route also has taken water up north. This water is basically being taken from Yangtze River, which is a very long river, and from its tributaries, the water is being tapped and being taken to up north to compensate what Yellow River is not able to do to that region. The entire project is almost, they've conceptualized it for almost 50 years, likely to be by 2050. And this will eventually deliver almost 48 billion, 45 billion cubic meter of water annually from down south to up north. This is a huge in terms of expenditure as well. Expenditure has already crossed $65 billion, and it was initially expected to be completed in this amount. But the work on the western route is yet to commence. So it's in terms of economy, it's huge, besides the technical engineering challenges that it poses. Next, please. Okay, so it is important for us to consider if we want to see our concern along the Brahmaputra, then we should see what China has done to Mekong. This is what you see. It is a river swells through China, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And this is a farming and fishing lifeline for all these downstream countries. This is almost 5,000 kilometer long, lands up in South China, but before that goes through all these countries. China has already targeting 21.3 gigawatt capacity by 2025, and almost 100 odd dams, smaller and big.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir.
Yeah.
So you have 10 minutes more. Just want to inform you that. Thank you, sir.
Okay, and what is a point to be noted here is that there is no water treaties with any of these countries. And it is almost, China has almost bulldozed its way to get this, despite the concern shown by most of these countries. And there have been indications that the rivers are going dry, the sediments is not reaching. Obviously, so all these, both the issues, the water not reaching and sediments not reaching, is a big concern for all these downstream countries. But there is no water treaty. In fact, the China itself is building up around 4 of these dams in Laos. And so through bulldozing through the economy and very many other means, China has just been doing what it wants to do. So all these dams that are being made on Mekong is also related to the water that's being taken from down south to up north. So, and this is the indicative of China's long-term plans on water. Next, please. Recently, this was also in the news. There is, if you see, besides on Brahmaputra, there is this river dam on Mabia Zangbo in Burang County of Tibet. Is very close to the tri-junction of India, Nepal, and Tibet. This is just about 16 kilometers north, opposite Uttarakhand, in Kalapani is a place. This river enters in Nepal as Ghagra, which is a tributary of Ganga. So the point that I am trying to pose is that is almost every tributary and every river that it can lay hand on, it's being laid. And the water, every time we have raised our concern, and the China says, no, this is all run of the river dams, and there is nothing to worry about. Next, please. So now this is the cause of concern. If you see in the extreme right corner of the map, Namcha Barua is the place. Great Bend is this river. It suddenly takes a turn and enters as Siang into Arunachal. So this is a 60 gigawatt dam that is being planned here. This Brahmaputra River covers almost 1700 kilometers in Tibet, 900 kilometers in India, 337 kilometers in Bangladesh. In Bangladesh, known as Padma, Siang in Arunachal, and Brahmaputra otherwise. This is the ninth largest river in terms of water discharge, and series of dams have already been constructed or are under construction as part of the diversion project. China, when confronted with these, says no, this is not for the water storage, this is not for water diversion, but all indications are there that these all dams are linked to the south to north water transfer project. Grand Canyon at near this great bend is ideally suited for a large dam as it extends upwards up to 5,000 meters, and it's a sharp gorge that is there once where the river turns into Brahmaputra, and ideally suited in terms of making a dam. But it has a lot of environmental concern, which I'll cover a little later. Next, please. Okay, so these are the dams which are, I mean, this is of the left, what you see, these 4 dams are already been constructed on Brahmaputra, and so many others are already planned on this. So just to give you an idea that we are in for losing Brahmaputra for good. Next, please. Okay, so now quick relationship of this, what is being developed on the river. Similarly, there's a whole lot of this is interconnected with the kind of infrastructure development and the activities that we have on the border. There's an extensive set of installation to support PLA. What you see on the left rounded portion is where the Galwan class took place, and what you see down below is a lot of infrastructure that has come up. And then there is a bridge that's coming up on the Pongongso Lake. There are the modern weatherproof camps, helipads, and you name a thing that is. Besides this, there are almost 624 villages that have been established, and these are all modern villages with all amenities. These are the kind of settlements, but they are all, these are for the support of the PLA. So G695 motorway also is coming up, which is going to cover Xinjiang region to the central China. The area, therefore, would remain contested. And if you see, if you the detailed study of all these developments and activities by the China on border would in somehow or the other relate to the kind of development on the river that it has been building, the dams that it has been building. Okay, the similar development across Arunachal and Sikkim frontier area, and every now and then we've heard since morning the kind of activities that China has been doing on the border. There's been, it's all indicative towards the land grab, and actually in the root of it is actually the water grab of all the rivers.
So sorry to interrupt you. You have 5 more minutes.
Yeah, please. Okay. Okay, so the threat analysis of mega dam counterbalancing by India. It's a rapid pace of military infra, like I said, that is a very, very worrisome. Frequent escalation on border, a sign of anxiety and signaling of intent by China. Besides hydro hegemony, the environmental and livelihood concern are very serious. You know, like a lot of livelihood depend on Brahmaputra, and in case that this water being diverted up north, the livelihood concerns are going to be really, really serious for our northeastern region and also for the Bangladesh. The area is biodiversity sensitive and difficult terrain to negotiate. So many experts feel that it is impossible to make dam there. It is a seismic zone, and it is going to create havoc environmentally as well as in case of any seismic activity. Then downstream countries are going to face the trouble. Now, to mitigate these consequences, even India is planning just another dam, 150 kilometers, a mega dam, just within 150 kilometers from this dam, and 11 gigawatt. So some people say this is a master stroke, but that also is going to create trouble. India has already revived 12 stalled projects in the area, which earlier, because of the environmental concerns, these have now all been revived. Next, please. Okay, so possible remedies are all known. All of us know that there are supposed to be the water treaties. There are supposed to be a good, solid agreements between the all riparian states. China hasn't done any. Every time this has been, there are all MOUs in place. There are frameworks in place on mutual for the management and basically for the transfer of data, which again China has whenever it felt. And whenever there's any activity happened on border areas, it has stopped giving you those kind of data. So there is a requirement of establishing formal framework and follow letter and spirit, honorable, equitable, and sustainable solution through joint research and consultations is the need of the hour. The Indus Water Treaty is an example. Despite 3 wars, we've held on to that treaty with Pakistan. So until and unless there are some sort of these binding agreement and arrangements, we will have the water wars threat will be lurking on us. Next, please. Okay, so to just finish off that, while it is understandable that the China needs to harness water, but the way China is going about capturing the water and going on the spree of dam building, it's really, really worrisome. This water sooner or later is going to be diverted. It should not be against the international norm and at the cost of environment, but the China is doing that. Diversion of water from existing river system will destroy the complete riverine ecology. Mekong River is the example that I quoted. And with mutual consultation, a win-win model of transboundary river management should be evolved. And the diplomatic pressure has to be exerted on China if we want to avoid this water war. And fight the climate change together with due concern to livelihood of all. So until and unless to end this concern is real, or anybody who would do the detailed study of China's intent and concern and the developmental spree would know that the intention of the China is to gather the complete water of Tibet and take it up north. Just a brief this thing that the one of the reason for this, besides the major industrialization, is the chip manufacturing today. The Chinese chips are there almost globally everywhere. One silicon wafer of 30 centimeter needs 10,000 liters of very, very pure water, and all waters up north in the river are contaminated. So this was one of the reason, example, I'm saying the kind of requirement of the industry because of the fast-paced development of China in every sphere. He's wanting to capture all these war, and therefore I reiterate that for everything that we see on the border, water is the root cause. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Air Marshal Rana. I know there are very serious concerns about the water wars, and I'm not sure what we are doing, in the sense that, okay, it's all right to say we are reviving these stalled projects, etc., but that will also cause ecological issues. That's a great point that you made. More importantly, we've seen what happened in South China Sea. China is not going to listen to any kind of counseling, whether it is based on UNCLOS or whether it's based on international norms. So that's something which you have to deal with. So what we have to understand is that this is something that is going to be a reality. If they say by 2050 they will have the bridge, they will have the bridge. If they say they will have a dam, they will have a dam. So this is where we have to worry about how we can counter the ill effects of these ecologically disastrous plans that they have made. I don't think we can bring the international community because they couldn't care less. So thank you so much. I'm sure there'll be many questions from the audience later. With that, I'll for this invite Mr. Claude Orpi to kindly come forward and make his presentation, which also will complement what you have said, but it's more about managing of the religious minorities in the border areas, etc. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commodore Vasant, for inviting me. For many years I didn't turn up because it's very far away, Pondicherry, but today I'm very happy to have accepted. So, I think Air Marshal Rana has made my life a little bit simpler because he has covered a few of the points. I think Xi Jinping has resumed, it was in 2011, he was vice president. He said, govern the nation by governing the border, govern the borders by first stabilizing Tibet, ensure social harmony and stability in Tibet, and strengthen the development of the border region. So in one way, it answers all the questions that I was asked to speak. And he has said this was he was vice president, but as you know, when Xi Jinping says something, it's repeated again and again and again. I've never seen a speech of Xi Jinping which was not important. It's always mentioned an important speech of President Xi Jinping or Secretary General Xi Jinping. So that's stability. I think Mr. Ranade mentioned it in the morning, stability, stability, stability. When China speaks about something, it means that they have a problem. So stability is a problem. You see the size of Tibet now. If Tibet had not been invaded, it's very easy to say if, but if Tibet had not been invaded in 1950, I would not be here to speak about the challenges that China is facing. All the challenge that China is facing in the so-called minority area, whether it is Tibet, Xinjiang, or in a smaller way in Mongolia, it's because of China expanding its territory as soon as Mao Zedong took over on October 1st, 1949. I think we are forgetting the relation with India. When we speak about Tibet or Xinjiang or Mongolia, we speak about its relation with China, but Tibet, as well as Turkestan, had a relation with India for centuries and millennia. And slowly the excavations are coming out, the research are being done, and archaeological findings prove that the connection was with India. And today, you're speaking about BRI, you're speaking about CPEC, or all these corridors. But where is the corridor? The 3,488 kilometers of LAC is just locked. You have three ports, Yatong, Lipuklek, and Chiprila. But actually, there's nothing happening. After COVID, nothing has happened. Minimal was happening before. So all this locked, but all these traditionally have been really links and opening, and the entire Himalaya was living only because of Tibet, and the Tibetans were coming, and the Himalayan people were going to Tibet. So this is over. So, and we can't forget. Now, today China wants to sinicize Tibet. I think in 5-6 years' time, Buddha will be born in China. Lumbini will be part of China. But it's the entire culture of Tibet, at least from the 7th, 8th century, and even before, during the Burn faith, the entire civilization of Tibet comes from India. So the Buddhism was introduced by Guru Padma Sambhav. Of course, China will say that he's a Pakistani, but because he's born in Swat, but the fact is, everything has come from this thing, and we are forgetting about it. Once the Dalai Lama told me it's like a deep freezer, Tibet. We have kept your Indian knowledge system, which is very famous today politically, but it is a fact that all Sanskrit and Pali manuscript from Nalanda, Vikramasila, all the big viharas of North India have been kept in Tibet. So that was the first challenge, the occupation. And I think in India they don't realize China invaded Tibet from the northeast, from Qinghai, from Sichuan, from Yunnan, as well from Turkestan at that time. And it changed drastically the life of the Tibetan. I have studied with USI for 4 years, and I produced 4 volumes to try to put on record what has happened between 1947 and 1962. And basically, China came and brought another view of the world, atheists. And Tibet had always been a religious country, maybe the most religious country in the world. The amount of monks, the proportion of monks compared to the lay population was the highest in the world. So suddenly that clash of civilization, it was before it was even existent, took place, and it changed everything, including for India. My topic was about the minority and the ethnic minorities. Now, if you look in the Politburo, not a single member of, from 49, not a single member of a minority. Today, in the Central Committee, you have 2 Tibetans, Lobsang Gyatsen and Yan Jinai. Mr. Ranade spoke about Xinjiang, the Minister of External Affairs, who has disappeared since 1.5 months. Now, Lobsang Gyatsen, the senior-most Tibetan, has disappeared 3 months. Nobody has said anything. I've not seen a single article in the Indian media, even the Chinese media, about it. Out of the 204 members of the CC, of the Central Committee, 38 belongs to the PLA. How many minorities? 0. The 20th Congress in November, 2,296 delegates, only 11% are from the minority area, from ethnic. And if you see the map, it's 2/3 of the landmass of the People's Republic of China. If you take just Tibet, Xinjiang, and Mongolia. There's 4 Tibetan delegates, mostly poster boys or poster girls. There's one general, but he's serving a non-operational front in Qinghai. Similarly for the National People's Congress. So the minority has no political place. Now what the Chinese did, and because Tibet was a challenge, it was such a landmass, they divided in 1965 Tibet in 5 different provinces. One Gansu, Qinghai, Sichuan, Yunnan, and at the center, the Tibetan Autonomous Region. Yesterday, the Chinese media said that they have decided to change the name of Tibet. They don't want the name of Tibet to be used anymore. It should be called Xishan, which is in Tibet, in Chinese means the western Tsang, the western part of Tibet. So that is a big challenge for China, because if there are no challenge, why would they change the name of? It will not work. They said everywhere in the press, in the media, in a communique, press report, everywhere we should stop altogether to use the name Tibet. But the Tibetans still exist. So that they have a problem, they have a challenge. And the person who started all that policy was Chen Chang'o, who was the party secretary between 2011 and 2016. Everyone speaks, especially the Western media, the American, they speak about Xinjiang, the camp, Uyghur. That's true that they are suffering. But the guy who started that was party secretary in Tibet. In 2016, he shifted to Xinjiang, and he started all the repressive measures in Xinjiang, and he was elevated as a member of the Politburo. Today, he's a member of the Politburo. Just I show you very briefly, is the Standing Committee of the Tibetan Autonomous Region. Since 1951, when the Chinese came in Tibet, the party secretary in Tibet, means the boss, the supreme boss, has always been Han. Never they have put a Tibetan. Number 2, the one who has disappeared, Lobsang Gyatsen, is a Tibetan. Out of the 15, most of them are Han. And number 6, there's one party secretary, 4 deputy secretary, and the number 6 is the political commissaire of the Tibet military region. He is, of course, always Han. So that shows that Tibetan, as well as Uyghur, or as well as Mongolian, are second-class citizens in this. Can you imagine Tamil Nadu since 47, since independence, without a Tamilian chief minister. That's the same thing. We didn't ever compare, but we should compare. Historical challenge, the Tibetan revolted in 1959. Dalai Lama left and took refuge in India. I could go faster in the thing. There was a mass uprising. China speaks always about the masses. They've served the masses. But that day, on the 10th March of 1959, the entire population of Lhasa, I mean 30,000 people, assembled and demonstrated and tried to stop the Dalai Lama to leave his palace. He left. Again, in 87, 88, 89, there were riots. The emergency was put on. At that time, the party secretary is Mr. Hu Jintao. In the morning, two of the speakers spoke at length about Hu Jintao. He was posted in Tibet. He hated Tibet. He didn't like Tibet. He was trying to go to hospital in Beijing to say he was sick because he didn't want to join his duty. Again in 2008. And China has never been able to control the Tibetan, and I think it's the major challenge. So they have found new ways of controlling the Tibetan. One is that Xiaokang village, the villages which is so-called moderately well-off. Xiaokang means moderately well-off. They are called also border village. And this, you can, I don't know if there's a pointer here. You see camera on each. They have built between 620 and 650 villages on the border, India's border, on the LAC. And Xi Jinping always speaks about mingling like pomegranate seeds. So he wants the Tibetan ethnic and the Chinese Han to mingle and to be like a pomegranate seed, that everyone is the same. But same color means it will be red color, it will be the color of hope. So Xi Jinping has adopted the first village in 2017, which is north of Upper Subansari, Azafila, for Takshin, for those of you who know about it. And that was the pretext was poverty alleviation and protecting the border. Nobody believes that these people, that first village of Yume, there was 7 inhabitants the first year. Now there's 200-300, but these 7 inhabitants were not protecting the border. Who protects the border? The PLA or the border defense regiments, but not the thing. So, but they wanted to use this village to build up infrastructure, and always by law in China it's dual use, means it has to be used for the standard have to be used for the PLA, for the army, as well as for the civilian, and eventually recruiting Tibetan in the. So you see some of the village. That village is just 5-6 kilometers from Zemintang sector, from Tawang sector, from Kenzimane. And it has grown everyone, mushroom everyone. So this village come out of nowhere. Most of this village, there was a very few Tibetans. So it means they have relocated lakhs and lakhs of Tibetans, as well as brought Han Chinese.
They are Tibetans or Hans?
Mixed. Mixed.
The Indian border.
And of course,
Hans or Tibetans?
both. And Tibetan from outside, also from Nakshu, north of Tibet. They brought a lot of Tibetan under the pretext that they can't breathe because there is lack of oxygen. But Tibetan have breathed normally for centuries, so that is not good. So, of course, they speak about Sinicization of the Tibetan culture, the Tibetan religion, and they will have to be good communist Chinese. And married In Metok, that Air Marshal Rana was speaking about that grid band of the thing. So that's called Metok County. There were 600 multi-ethnic. Multi-ethnic means Han and Tibetan. Mostly men are Han and women are Tibetan. The big change, the big turn was the train. Mao Zedong foresaw probably that that these dams, he foresaw also the train, and 5 more minutes. That is Gerald Narasimhan was on that picture. Did you recognize? And they start bringing millions of tourists, 40 million in 2020. It cooled down 21 because of the COVID, but now it starts again. And no foreign tourists mainly. If you see, I'm losing time and just changing the slide. So either you give me an extra time bonus for the. This has been mentioned by Air Marshal Rana, that that is the most seismic area, so it's very dangerous to do dams. In August 15 of 1950, there was the largest earthquake, 8.6 on the Richter scale, in the Loite Valley, very close to this. Next. Landslides is occurring too. So if they do any dams or any construction, that was very big danger. Next. Infrastructure development, it has been mentioned, but they are doing much more than they need, because many of these express highway or this highway, like they are doing now 4218 and 318, they are just parallel to each other for hundreds of kilometers. These two highways are parallel. So for what reason they are doing much more? Probably that when the economy doesn't go well, you invest in infrastructure and you employ people. Next. A new one, the Aksashin Road, everyone knows in India because it crosses in the Aksashin part of Ladakh, but now they are doing a new one between Xinjiang and Tibet. That will be the second axis. First one was Aksashin Road, now the 216. It will cross the Kunlun, which is very, very difficult technically, but China are so much in advance on India, any other country in the world, technically to put tunnels or to put road. So that's the road development. There will be a road to Chumbi Valley. I call it always a Chumbi corridor because they call it the Siliguri corridor. But this is really a challenge for China. When you speak of challenge, that that Chumbi corridor could be taken over also as well. They could take the Siliguri corridor, but India could take the Chumbi corridor. That is 58 airport they're going to do before 2035 next. And the dam that Air Marshal spoke about is not a dam. No, come back. A dam will be too big. There'll be a reservoir, and Bahi, which means October 1st, their main center for the hub for the PLA is too close. It could be flooded. So there'll be a long tunnel of 30 meters and 8, 9, or 10 run of the river, but each one will be 6,000 or 7,000 mega, which is 3 times the lower 3 times more than the lower Subansari. The Tibet, all the policy for Tibet have been taken in this work forum. We had the 7th one in 2020, the 6th one was in 2015. It's 300 senior people, means the standing, the member of the standing committee, the member of the Politburo, the member of the CMC, all the regional party chiefs, and there's hardly any Tibetan in it. So all decisions are not taken by the ethnic minorities. It's the same thing for in Xinjiang. Next. I think one of the big challenge for for China today is India, because they thought it would be easy When I mentioned about Gerald Zhao in the morning, he said he thought it would be easy in Doklam in 2017. He thought it would be easy in May 2020 in Eastern Ladakh. Unfortunately, it's not easy. And each time they just want to advance a few kilometers to dominate the ridge. Today, India dominates the ridge in most of the places. Last week I was in Arunachal for 11 days. I had the occasion, opportunity to go to the forward area. Today India is dominating. So it would be very difficult for the PLA today, for China, to advance 500 meters or 1 kilometer. So there's no question of invasion, no? And India army is ready. The road, I've been, for example, in Ladakh 2 consecutive years. I've been last year also in Arunachal, and this year, roads, everything is has tremendously changed the whole landscape. Of course, there's a negative side. More tourists will come and will destroy. We may have what we have in Uttarakhand or in Himachal Pradesh today with the floods. But for the defense forces, it's really a big, big change, including the advanced landing ground and the new next. Of course, that is a big challenge. It will not be solved. It's a border dispute. It's very complicated. I will not talk about it but there is so many difference of perception which are due mainly to the fact that in 2013, 2014, Captain Bailey and Captain Rashid, who did the recce in these places, didn't have all the modern way of finding a ridge and finding the watershed. As a result, the maps were not fully correct, and sometimes it's in India's advantage, sometimes it's China's advantage.
These maps are official maps. The earlier one.
Huh?
The maps are official.
That is the Chinese maps and their argument. I will not go into it for the dispute on the border.
No,
And that is the McMahon line of 1914.
Have the Chinese exchanged these maps with the government of India?
Okay?
Have the Chinese government exchanged?
No,
these-
not on the. They've exchanged for the middle sector in year 2000. They have shown for 20 minutes in 2002 for the western sector, for Ladakh, but for the eastern sector, it has never been shown or exchanged. So we don't know, but there's some sort of a gentleman agreement of where is the LAC. When you go to this place, Kenzimane and all the last post, you see that Chinese are on the ridge and they leave a few hundred meters for China. So I think these 19 rounds of border talks have helped greatly to fix the LAC. Because contrary to what China has been saying and what the Indian media has been repeating, it's very easy for China to plant story in the Indian media. Someone complained there is no journalist anymore. I say very good. No Indian journalist in Beijing. Very good, because China would plant every day some story or another. They have planned the story that there was LAC since '59. That is not true. Now there is LAC in 4 or 5 places in Ladakh after the 19 rounds of talk. There is LAC in two LACs in central sector. There is no LAC. There is some gentleman agreement in the eastern sector. Next. And of course, you have heard that they are trying their luck because they are very jealous the fact that the Tibetans have fought for India, especially in the Kailash range in August 2020. They have taken in one night, they have taken the entire range, and they said Tibetans are Chinese. Why are they fighting for India? And each time they have the occasion on some border point meeting, they telling you Tibetan, you're Chinese, why you're fighting for India? Next, because I say he's getting nervous. Next. And of course, there's all pilgrimage road and everything has been closed with Doklam and all. But that is a link which will last with India. Lord Shiva stays in that Kang Rinpoche or this Kailash, he will not go. So this will remain, and that connection will remain. But now how to revive it is another issue. And of course, and the last challenge for China is Dalai Lama, and so they are trying to use their own stooge, their own Panchen Lama. The Panchen Lama, recognized by the government, by Dharamsala, by Dalai Lama, as being locked, has been in custody for 25 years. Nobody knows where he is. But and they have appointed that person. That person is supposed to have a vision in a lake called Lamoilat. So they are planning for the last Dalai Lama, and that is a really challenge for them. Dalai Lama has kept very quiet, or sometimes he has spoken a little bit too much, saying a girl or like that. The 15th Dalai Lama will be a lady or this or that, but he has not said anything officially. He had said he would say when he's 90, now he's 88. Hopefully he will say something, because it's a concern for India also. It's a big, big concern for India. India is a secular country. India will not interfere in the succession of the Dalai Lama, but it's a concern because we prefer to have it this side than the other side. Next, sorry. For the
Thank you, Claude, for that fascinating presentation. One never tires of listening to you. I've heard you so often, and we also read your papers, and most of you who are familiar with work will know the kind of intensity and passion that you bring to your presentation. So he mentioned about one slide which was there, which showed the kind of manuscripts that were there, which were brought by His Holiness Dalai Lama. I had taken a delegation from Chennai Center for China Studies 4-5 years ago, and we were given about 10 minutes to call on His Holiness, and then he spent 1.5 hours with 6 of us who were sitting with him, and then he said, I am the repository of all the ancient knowledge of India, and I have it with me, and I brought it along with the entire thing when I moved in as a refugee. So that's where the TPI, the Tibet Policy Institute, which is there now, Claude would be familiar with that. We did visit that place, and they're doing a lot of work in trying to digitize all this work. I hope that happens. It's mammoth work. It's not easy. Just to digitize one will take that kind of an effort. So thank you so much, and we'll now be taking the questions. So since the majority is on the virtual platform, we'll take the questions from the virtual platform first. Claude, please come and sit here, and thereafter we'll take the questions from here. Yeah, please indicate who it is addressed to and get the other two panelists online.
Greetings, everybody. We are going to begin the Q&A for the virtual participants. The first question, we have 2 questions directed towards Bala Subramaniam sir. It's by all the questions in the online platform was raised by Mr. Rishi Atreya. The first question, sir, is that you had mentioned about QCCM in your presentation. Mr. Atreya wants this aspect to be clarified and explained in detail. And the second question that was raised to you was, kindly elaborate more on the role of Russia in the former Soviet republics. Thank you, sir.
All the questions together so that they make a note and give a comprehensive response.
Okay,
Otherwise
sir.
we'll lose time.
Okay, sir. Moving on, we have another 2 questions, again by Mr. Rishi Atreya, directed towards Mr. Claude RP, sir. Mr. Atreya asks about the situation of Ladakh and Lahaul Spiti that share borders with Tibet. The second question is, he says the institution of Lama is complicated with no direct succession in the lifetime of any of the top Lamas. He requests for comments on the next Dalai Lama and wants to know if there have been any updates on the missing Karmapa Lama. That is it from the online platform, sir.
Are there any questions for Air Marshal Rana from the audience? So only if there are questions, no comments at this moment. We'll take the comments later. Yeah, you can ask Bala to respond. Claude, in the manual, you can respond.
What is the
This was
question
about
about
Dalai
Dalai-
Lama.
Dalai Lama is a very complicated issue. Basically, there's two ways of succession. One is reincarnation. One Lama, Dalai Lama or any other Lama, there was 4,000 reincarnated Lama in Tibet. He passed away, and his monastery or the state government, in the case of the Dalai Lama, is looking for his reincarnation. So he has vision in the lake that I've shown this. And sometimes the Lama leaves a letter of prophesying where he is going to come back. That is reincarnation. The other way is emanation. Something like we have here Shankaracharya, who's selecting, picking up a boy and say he's going to be the junior Shankaracharya, and I will groom him, I will give him all the tantric initiation, all the knowledge to become one day the Shankaracharya. Similarly, there's a possibility of emanation. Now, the problem of a Dalai Lama, and the role of the Dalai Lama is a temporal role as well as spiritual role. In his temporal role, if there is no leader for 20 years, and it happened in Tibet in 19th century, there was 5 Dalai Lama, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They all passed away at the age of 16, 17, 18. Many people say that the Chinese had found the tricks. The Dalai Lama, young Dalai Lama disappears, you start again the process. So I think in today's world, it's not possible to have a leader, a gap of 20 or 25 years. I have been writing and saying he should change the system and go for emanation. It has been studied by the office of the Dalai Lama. They have not taken a decision. Many of the monasteries in the south, in Bailakupe or Mungod and all, are very traditionalist and say we should go by the traditional way. But the world has changed. Even Xi Jinping every morning he says that the world is changing very fast. So today's world, you can't have a country or any organization without a leader for 20 years. So my opinion is should go for emanation. Train someone, pass whatever he has to pass in terms of tantric knowledge or knowledge in general, and otherwise you'll have a gap, and it's not only the Tibetan who will suffer, but also the Himalayan people. All people, Laos, Spiti, Kinnaur, Arunachal, Ladakh, they're all, for them, the Dalai Lama is everything. When Dalai Lama arrived in Leh 2-3 weeks ago, the entire population was between the airport and the place where he was residing, 15 kilometers from there. So that is very important for India also. And to have the Dalai Lama here is also a great, great asset. So I hope that something will be decided. But I hope also that it will not take too much time and not done at the last minute. So, but reincarnation means a 20 years gap. I don't, it's very difficult.
Bala, are you online? Is he there?
So he's responded to the questions in the chat box. He's facing network issues. I can maybe read out the answer.
You can just read out.
Yes, sir. The first question about the situation of the elaboration on QCCM. He says the QCCM was set up in 2016 by Afghanistan, China, Pakistan, and Tajikistan. It was to combat terrorism and further security cooperation. I think because of network issues, he was not able to answer the second question. We can maybe reach out to him via mail.
What is the language of administration in Tibet? Mandarin or Tibetan? Mandarin.
Sometimes when they small, very small line in Tibetan. But they all speak Mandarin.
What is the medium of instruction in school?
Medium of instruction, again, is Mandarin. Normally, Tibetan should be studied, but there was a lot of report coming from the West. So they found out that whoever has learned Mandarin has a better chance to get a job or like that. And in some school, they really try to take out Tibetan to replace by Mandarin. So if you have you speak Mandarin, you can get a job. If you don't speak only Tibetan, you will not get a job. That's easy.
One on the post-Dalai Lama phase. Few years ago, George Yeo, then Singapore foreign minister, went to China. And on his own initiative, he called on Panchen Lama. When they asked this question in a binational dialogue in India and Singapore, they said it's a Panchen Lama who wanted to meet him with his life. Now, my question is, in post-Dalai Lama phase, will the member states of ASEAN recognize Panchen Lama as the real Dalai Lama?
They will be, China will select its own Dalai Lama. That is for sure.
No, I am asking about the attitude of the member states of ASEAN.
The attitude of the Tibetan.
Now, how will ASEAN members recognize if there is a Panchen Lama? Because a lot of Buddhist community in the ASEAN countries.
The state will not recognize. It's only individual who will recognize. The people of Tibet will, like in the case of the Panchen Lama, they are forced sometimes to attend his function, but they don't recognize him as such. As a state, no Asian or no state is recognizing officially. A state usually is a secular state, like in the case of India. India will not interfere in that issue, though at the end India can say we are very happy, and the 15th Dalai Lama, whoever the 14th Dalai Lama select, or whoever his establishment select, will be welcome to stay in India like the 14th Dalai Lama has stayed. So it's the most that the ministry, the foreign ministry can do, but not more than that.
Sir, thank you, sir. If you can, you got a question for Rana? No comments, please, if you don't mind. No comments. If you have a question, please ask for Air Marshal Rana. Yeah.
Air Marshal Rana, I was listening to you attentively, and I have two questions to ask. Some projects in Brahmaputra has been completed. Some are on the way. Now, how much of water supply to Brahmaputra has been affected? The second question is Mekong, which is very, very dear to us because the Cambodians and the Thais refer to it as Ma Ganga. Ma Ganga became Mekong there. Now, how much of the projects have been completed on Mekong, and how much of water supply to Southeast Asian country has been affected? One more, this thing that is to Watson. It's high time that the Chennai Center for China Studies brought together the Southeast Asian specialists on this river system and the Indian specialists and share their experiences and the Chinese diplomacy towards this water. It will be of great use to you. This is not a question, this is a suggestion, I am sure you will oppose this suggestion. On Bala, may I ask?
Sorry, run out of time.
No, 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Okay, 2
15. Bala, there were two asides I want to mention. Because the Russians entered Afghanistan, the Russian ambassador in Delhi met Morarji Desai and told him we are going
to type the response.
We are going to enter Afghanistan. You can do whatever you want in Azad Kashmir. Morarji told him, I will not fish in my neighbors' troubled waters. And Morarji was given the greatest honor by the Pakistani government, which is equivalent to Bharat Ratna. The
Thank you. Air Marshal Rana, if you could kindly respond to his question. Two questions were there from Professor Suryanarayan.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for asking that question. I didn't want to get into too much of statistics, but yes, since the question that you have asked is very pertinent, just for the audience, there's almost 50% of the Brahmaputra or Yalang Sampo basin is in China or Tibet, and around 35% in India and about 15% in Bangladesh. That is as far as the basin part is concerned. But the water availability is almost just about 30%. That is in Tibet region, and this is basically the melting from the glacier. That water is 30% that comes, and rest of the majority of the water actually is in India. Which is through various tributaries in northeastern region, also from Bhutan, and likewise. So it gathers majority of the water in India. But that is not to say that like there are some expert would believe that so what? I mean, if we already have 70% of water from India, then where is the threat? But it is not so. The water that we gather in Indian tributaries is only in the monsoon season. While we have the extended monsoon, but it is just about 6 months that we have this water. And this water, since it is not captured, it actually creates more problem than otherwise. While the water that is coming from Brahmaputra is a perennial water and a regular flow. So one is the question of the quantum. The quantum is less, but there is this water regularly has to come. So the moment there is any damming done, one is that the sedimentation part is a big challenge. That is what is being faced in Mekong. All these in Vietnam and Cambodia and all these places that they grow paddy and fishery. Almost all their livelihood have been impacted very adversely. And one of the major reason for their adverse this thing is because the sedimentation is no more reaching those deltas. And so this part of the perennial part of the water, if it is stopped in Brahmaputra, it is going to create a lot of challenge for the riverine this thing. So as far as the quantum part is concerned, other issues I've already discussed. As far as the Mekong is concerned, China has virtually milked this river like no end. There are 13 big dams which are already in almost in completion stage in China alone. And this is, we are talking only about the big dams. Then there are down the line, there are around again 11, 12 dams in Laos, Cambodia, and down south. And because these people are not able to say much, because China is actually funding most of it, either in terms of technology sharing or in terms of the financial. Like Laos, they are building 4. So despite the adverse impact of these dams downriver, they are not able to say much. I mean, not that they are not saying, but China is not listening. Like Commodore Watson also said that the international community might keep saying anything, but the fact is that China got to listen. So that is as far as the Mekong part is concerned. It is almost about 21.3 gigawatt capacity water, the electricity is the goal by China on Mekong, which is again huge. And there's a series of these dams they've already built. So the Mekong River is facing very serious issues. And if Brahmaputra, particularly if the mega dam comes, then we are really in for big trouble. There are already around 11 dams that are in a various stages of either completion or being completed on Brahmaputra also. But those are not big capacity dams. But what is being done is that this is a preliminary work towards finally making that mega dam, because they wanted to harness all these water while China has been on absolute denial. But the fact is that they have made these series of the dams primarily to finally make that mega dam in across the Arunachal border. I hope I have answered that.
Thank you very much, Rana. Mr. Claude RP had something to add to that. I'll just give him 1 minute.
No, I just wanted to say that the diversion of the Yalong Tsangpo is different from the damming, the hydropower. The diversion would mean that the water would be sent from this area of Ningxi, which is relatively low, which is 8,000 feet, up, pump up, and there, and later on down in Gansu, Qinghai province, to revive the Yellow River, which is the cradle of the Chinese civilization. And when Xi Jinping speaks of revitalization of the China, he also equated to the new life for the Yellow River who is drying. So they have this plan, but it's far more difficult to pump up the water and then down to the Yellow River than even to dam it. So dam it is difficult. There's so many issues involved, but diverting is even more difficult. But the Indian media likes to pick up on diverting because it looks nice, because they think there'll be no water on the Brahmaputra later on. But it's very difficult, even for the Chinese.
Thank you, Claude. It's been a fascinating session today. And with this, we come to the end of this session and we move on to the next one. Hand over to Yogesh.
So I would like to thank the chair and the distinguished speakers for that illuminating and discerning presentations. Moving on, I also thank the Commodore for having so ably moderated this session. I also thank the members in the audience and the speakers for that vibrant Q&A session. Now I request the chair, Commodore R.S. Vasan, to felicitate the distinguished speakers. Saplings, yes sir. We'll keep it safe for them.
Pass it on digitally.
Thank you so much, Claude. Great having you with us. Oh, the photo is there.
I'm not professional.
Thank you.
Thank you.